Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Google Hangout. I'm so grateful to present the amazing Anne Maxwell. She's live from, where is it? Houston, Texas?
From Houston?
Yeah. And Anne Maxwell is a family therapist and play therapist, and she has experience from over 20 years working with kids, young adults, youth, and yeah. And then she's a best-selling author with this amazing book.
Woo!
Would you teach a fish to climb a tree? And then she's an executive director of the Access Possibility Schools. So we have a lovely flyer right here. So welcome to you, Anne Maxwell, and thank you for being online with us.
Thank you, Helly, and thank you, Eva. Thank you for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here talking about one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah. Kids. Yeah.
Can't wait. So, Anne, some of the things that comes to mind when I see you is that you know so much about what is going on these days. I mean, what is really happening out there? What is the problems that or the challenges that parents, teachers have with kids? What is going on?
Well, I was actually going to ask you guys to tell me because it's different. It's different and it's the same. Okay, so in every country there's a slight variation, a slight difference, but the theme that's really the same is that parents want to be good parents.
Yes.
Right? And they want their kids to do well. Even parents, even the like quote worst parents, the parents who are mean, who abuse their kids, all that, somewhere they were led astray or whatever. Most parents actually really want their kids to do well. And most parents wonder whether they're doing the right thing or not, right? And for parents who have kids who are different from other kids, a lot of times those parents wonder what's wrong with their kids or wonder what's wrong with them or what they could have done different or what they did wrong to create their kids like that or whatever. And there's just this overlay of a lot of times of guilt and of worry and of genuine concern about kids. So that's the common theme that I've found in almost every family that I've worked with.
So if you had asked me that question, I would have answered probably the same. That is what is generally going on here as far as I've met it. Exactly that concern and that wish, and also that frustration, like a deep wish to do something better, something different, and not knowing how to do it. So, yeah, that's what you know a lot about.
Right, and so one of the things that I was trained as a therapist is that there's a right way to be and a wrong way to be, and there's a right way to say things and a wrong way to say things. And there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And one of the things that I was also trained as a therapist was to teach people how to be different so they could fit in, so they wouldn't stand out like that. And it never worked. I never found that to work. And the kids that I worked with, I started off 25 years ago, 30 years ago, working in a residential treatment center, which in the United States is where kids get sent. It's like the end of the road, right? These are the kids that can't live for whatever reason in a family setting, either in their own or a foster family or an adoptive family or even in a group home. And so they get sent to these centers. And these were the kids who never fit in anywhere, right? Who were like the rebels, the ones who really stood out. And what I realized from them is that they were made to be and to feel so wrong for being who they were. And they refused in so many different ways to become who they weren't. They just fought it and fought it and fought it. And one of the things that I love about being an access consciousness facilitator and about doing the work that I do is that they're really tools that parents and kids can use that acknowledge the difference that kids are, and tools that they can use to manage being different without having to become who other people think they should be.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And that's a huge gift. It's just amazing. Do you want me to tell you a story about that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so he was 12 years old, and he came in to see me, and he was brilliant in math, and he was flunking math, and his mom was mad at him because he wasn't trying. He hated the teacher, and he wasn't trying. And the year before, he'd gotten straight A's and had been in the gifted and talented program for math. And so I said to him, "What's up? Like, what is that?" And he said, and I had no point of view about him being wrong. I knew something was going on because he's brilliant. And I said, "So what is that?" And he said, "Well, the teacher hates me." And I know how brilliant he is. And I said to him, "Is the teacher like you? Can the teacher think like you think, or does the teacher think differently?" And he said, "She thinks differently." And I said, "Are you quicker than the teacher is?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Can the teacher keep up with you?" And he said, "No." And I said, "So what if do you know what the teacher wants from you?" And he said, "Yeah, but I'm not going to give it to her." And I said, "Well, what if you could give it to her without becoming who she thinks you should be? What if you can give her whatever is required in order for you to get a good grade without becoming who she wants you to be?" And he looked at me, he said, "I can do that?" And I said, "Can you?" He said, "Yeah." And his mom called me 2 weeks later and said, "Thank you. Everything's good. Grades are back up. He's quit fighting with the teacher. He doesn't like her anymore, but he's quit fighting with her."
Yeah.
And they've got like a truce like that.
That's amazing, and thank you for sharing that. And I was thinking, when you talked about knowing, when you asked him what he know, I thought you talk more about that, because that's so different from what you think and what you believe and all that. And
Thank you for that, Eva. I forget about all this stuff. It's so many of us were raised and probably raise our kids and work with the kids in our school thinking that because they're little they don't know anything, and also thinking that as adults, because we're adults, we're superior to them, and our job is to guide them and tell them what to do and tell them when they're right and tell them when they're wrong, even if we know that's not actually true because it doesn't actually work. That's really what the expectation is placed on adults, right? To be the role model for kids. And it's done in a way that really dishonors kids. And one of the things that I do is I do ask kids questions like, "What do you know?" And okay, so here's a peek into what part of what these classes are all about. So so in school, when you go to school, you're taught that somebody asks you a question and there's a right answer and there are probably 100 wrong answers that you can give, right? Yeah. And your job is to find the right answer. Well, guess what? In life, what if that's actually not true? So a question, according to me, is what you ask when you don't know what the answer is. A question is not a question if you already know the answer. That's a statement with a question mark at the end of it. So a question is a question, like, "What's up?" That's a question. "When are you going to get your homework done?" That's not a question. That's a statement with a question mark at the end of it, because it presupposes A, that they have homework, B, that they're going to do it, and C, that they know when. Maybe they're not going to do it. Maybe they don't have homework, right? So asking kids, like, "What do you know?" So if your child comes home from school and is upset about a fight that she got into with her best friend, so what do you know about your friend? Or what was that? Not what did you say or what did you do wrong, but what was that? What was going on? And what do you know about your friend? And what else do you know about her? What else do you know about her? What else? And they'll get to it. "Oh, she was cranky. Oh, her mom yelled at her this morning. Oh, the teacher embarrassed her," whatever, right? You ask. I
love that. You talked about also when kids see themselves as wrong.
Yeah.
How often that happens. And I remember when I started working with kids, I was surprised, with the young people, I was so surprised that they thought they were so wrong.
Right.
And could you talk about how you use that knowing what they know to get them out of that wrongness?
I asked them, there are lots of tools to do that, but one of the questions I asked them is, what if you weren't wrong?
Yeah.
Right? And they do what you just did. They start to giggle and their brain spins. And then the next question is, and if you weren't wrong, what would you be?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that opens up for a whole new conversation. Here's
the thing, like when you ask questions like that, it creates there's like this energy or this vibration, this sense that comes up. That's the purpose of questions.
Yeah.
Is they create an awareness of something different, or they create an awareness of what actually is in spite of what everybody else thinks it is. Mm. And we'll talk a lot about that in class. But these classes really appeal to people who know that there's another way of being with kids and that there's another way of being with themselves. One of my favorite things to talk about is, have you ever noticed how you can change what you say and you can change what you do, and you can change how you say it and you can change how you do it, but if you don't change what's actually underneath it, what's driving it, does anything ever really change, right? Like all those New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose 10 pounds. I'm going to work out every day. I'm not going to yell at my kid. Whatever, right? And 3 seconds later, you're shut up. Right.
Then you do yourself wrong.
Right, exactly. And then you feel bad. And then you make yourself even more wrong. So we're like going to set that aside. And what I have to offer is a completely different way of being with all of this, of being with yourself, of being with your kids, of viewing yourself, of viewing your kids, whether you're a parent, whether you're a teacher, medical person, therapist, whomever.
Yeah. I would like to,
and it's fun
to what you said before. Okay, when you said before that you asked that question when they're in their wrongness, you ask them, "What if you weren't?" And that space it opens up for is like, that's a space where they know who they are.
Yeah,
totally. They know who they are and not what everybody else has told them that they are. It's magic.
One of my favorite stories about this school is one of the teachers was working with a little guy who believes that he's wrong all the time. And so she sent him off in the house to find different things. And he started screaming and crying and getting upset. I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. And his dad was yelling, his mom was upset. And she called him back to the computer and said, hey, come on back, come on back. And so he came back and she said, okay, let's go around my house. I'll go around my house and I'll show you all the things and you tell me what you would like me to choose. And so they did that. And at the end of it, she said to him, you know, I want you to know that in this school, there is nothing that you can ever say or do that's wrong.
Wow.
And he froze. He just went like this. And then he made straight eye contact with her. And she said, ever. You are never wrong here. And 2 hours later, he had a class with another teacher. That teacher had not spoken with the first teacher, and this teacher was doing something, and I don't know, she picked up on something, and she said, oh, and you know, by the way, kids in our school, they're never wrong. There's just other stuff going on, but they're never wrong. And he swung around, he looked at her, he said, I know. And he was like, I know. Right? It's not quick. It's not like adults who have to think and analyze and spend a lot of time, right? They're like, got it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I have some questions.
Yay!
Yay! Awesome.
Yeah. This is Sandra. She said that sometimes parents observe that the kids are not here. They're not focused. They have some troubles with the concentration, especially with the ADHD and the kids. So they ask, what can they do?
A lot, and it's a great question, and it's really, what if what you can do is the opposite of what you think that you should do, right? Because we're all told, focus, concentrate, no, you can only do one thing at a time. And for kids with ADD and ADHD, they can't. It's just an impossibility. They cannot focus on one thing unless it's something like an X-Men or some kind of a game or something like that. But mostly kids with ADD and ADHD do much better if they've got 2 or 3 or 4 things going on at the same time. So what I've told parents about homework is have them do math and English and science at the same time. And yeah, they can have the TV on so long as they're getting their work done, or the radio on, or whatever. And if they do their homework better out in the open at the dining room table when dinner's being cooked and there are other kids around and the dog is licking their feet, then that's great, right? But
Yeah.
let them, they do way better when they've got more than one thing going on.
Yeah. Yes, I have more questions.
Okay, cool.
Go.
People love being on this hangout, and she's a speech and language pathologist, and she's working with these kids and the ones that have problems. And then she's not a facilitator, but she wanted to be that. She had a kid who can't understand her language, and she asked her, "What do you know?" But she had a hard time getting the answer and what to do after that.
So another question she could ask is, what's your first language? Ask the child, what's your first language? And then just follow that thread, because they'll go like that, and if they say something that you know probably isn't actually their first language, then ask them again. So, Truth, what's your first language?
Wow.
And then the next question is, without having to translate from that language to this language, can you ask that you have as much ease in this language as you do with your first language?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. That's I love it. I love this.
Mm.
It's so cool.
Yes. I have another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see, where is it? She said, "Thank you, it's Randi. What if the example from before with the kid who gave the teacher what she wanted without becoming what she wanted? What if it's the teacher who came to you instead asking what to do with the kid? What would you do? What would you say?"
What I would say to the teacher who came to me and said, well, it would depend on what they said. But if a teacher came to me and said, this child is underperforming or acting out or not doing everything that he or she could do, I would ask the teacher the same question I asked the kid. What do you know about this what do you know about this child?
Yeah.
And what else do you know? And what else do you know? And does this child think differently from you? Does this child think differently from the other kids in the class? Can this child create his or her own system for arriving at the correct answer in math if it was a math class? And I would ask the teacher questions to sort of expand their point of view from there's this one way that the kid has to learn into something that's a little bit more inclusive, that would include the way the child learns more naturally. And then also, here's the other deal. Kids need to learn how to function in this world if they want to have, they want it to be easy for them. They actually benefit from learning tools so that they can function in the world without standing out so far. But the difference between me and the way I was trained is I don't ever ask people to become who they're not. Right? And so as a teacher, what if you can give your kids the tools that they require in order to function out in the world without making them become who they're not? Yeah.
Yes.
Have you got more questions, Max?
I have an ad, from the mom who had this kid. She said she has no language.
She has no language.
No language. Yeah.
So is it the language of energy?
Yes, she has. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Right, and that just opens like, okay.
Yeah.
And then what if you can ask for some ease or facility with wrapping words around that so that energy can be communicated to people who get things primarily verbally or with words?
Yeah.
Amazing. What great questions.
Yes, wow.
Yeah.
And two things came up for me. One, if you could talk a little bit more about that being different, because I know it's like a big challenge for many of us to allow our children to be different.
Yeah.
And the other one was Randy, who asked before, it's like how teachers are also, they are trained in a special way, as you said you were as well. They're trained in a special way, so also allow themselves to go beyond all that learning and see what else is there.
Yeah, that's great, Eva. And what I would add to the teacher is, what if you can be the question, ask questions where you don't know the answer?
Yes.
Which is so different, I'm sure, from the way you were trained, because it's certainly different from the way I was trained. And trust yourself to know that whatever it is that comes up is going to be true for that particular child or that particular circumstance, that there is no template, that you're no solution that you can impose on everybody, that is going to be different from kid to kid, to day, to time, circumstance to circumstance, and just trust what you know, that one day it'll be this and another day it'll be that, even with the same kid. But really to function from...
Yeah, and also go beyond the wrongness of them.
As opposed to conclusions, which is looking for the right answer. Yeah.
So like also when we ask the children to get beyond their wrongness, also to get beyond the wrongness of the teachers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the thing about the question, if you weren't wrong, what would you be?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't want to get in trouble, right? I didn't want to make my mom mad. I didn't want to get the wrong answer. I didn't want to make my friend have hurt feelings. There's always, if you weren't wrong, what would you be? And you get to follow that thread and then clear that and create something different. Yeah.
It also allows for a lot of difference. If we weren't wrong, we are in the same time opening up for allowing to be as different as we are.
Right. And so back to the question about different.
Yeah, please.
There's so many kids now that I'm aware of that are being born and that have been being born over the last 10 or 15 years who absolutely will not, under any circumstance, be who they're not. Right?
And they don't want to be controlled.
Right? They simply won't. They're different. They're proud of it. They're not embarrassed by it. They're good with it. And and so it's a lot harder to stomp that out of them than it was to stomp it out of us when we were little.
Oh, yeah. I know.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I work with parents and kids about is celebrating that difference. And like I said before, learning some tools so that it's easier for you to be out there in the world where people are more traditional or are more whatever. But basically what the tools do and what I offer in the classes are more choices so that you never function from the space of, I don't have a choice, I have to do this, right? Well, she was mean to me, so I have to pay her back. No, there's a bazillion other choices that you have, right?
So you have.
Would it be a good idea now to hear the story about Haley's child and the way he does math?
Oh, look at him. He has his very special own way because he has created his own system. And the teacher don't understand it, but he does. So, but we told him, you can have your own system, but you have to learn the other system too, so the teacher can see how to do it. Because the teacher just wanted one way, but he has his own system and created that. So it's So he's so much quicker, having the results and in other ways. So yeah.
I think that is such a beautiful example of what Anne was talking about, that they do things different, those kids. They do them faster, smarter, and everything, and nobody understands what is going on.
Exactly.
And then also, like you said, translate into the language, the math of the teacher, so that the teacher will accept what he's doing. That's an amazing story.
Exactly. Yeah.
And imagine that they can do it.
Yeah.
They know how to do it. When you ask them, you just ask, and then he do it.
And because he had the sense that if he's doing it the other way, like the teacher one, it's so slow. It's really we have to go through it all, and it's yeah.
That's amazing.
So and
we have about 5 minutes left.
Yes, we have some classes coming up in Denmark.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do we want to talk a bit about that? The classes?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're doing an intro night. Yes. Yes.
On the 19th. Yeah.
On the 19th, the evening of the 19th. Huh?
Yeah, November.
November 19th. Yes, November 19th. Copenhagen. Would You Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree? Is the best-selling. It's an international bestseller now. It's a book that I wrote. I co-authored with Gary Douglas and Dr. Dane here. Yep. And anybody who comes to that intro, we're going to give copies of the book away. So yeah, if you show up, you'll leave with a copy of the book. And it's one of my favorite classes. I love that book, and I love talking about it. I love those kids, and so that's what that is. And then All About Your Kids is the next day, is the 20th, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's a one-day class, and that's a class for anybody. You don't have to have been in Access Consciousness. You don't have to have taken a class. There are no prerequisites for it at all. And it's really along the lines of what we were talking about now, right? Of just a different way of viewing kids, viewing yourselves, some tools that you can start to use like right away, like we did here, like if you weren't wrong, like what if you weren't wrong, and if you weren't wrong, what would you be, right? Asking a question, not a statement with a question mark at the end of it. We'll spend a lot more time on that, but like those kinds of things. And Helle, you took that class in like a year ago, right?
Yes, in Austria. It was an amazing class, and it was so interesting because I have my 2 kids with me. And Sebastian, who's 9 years old now, he came back to the school after that, and the teachers was asking us, what do you do to him? Because he started, reading much better. He jumped a class, so now he's reading better, his math is better, and just being in the energy in the class.
Yeah. I have pictures of the 2 of them sitting in the back of the room, and that I love. Oh, and please bring your kids if you come to my class.
Thank you.
Love
please.
having kids. Yeah. Love having kids. But they sat in the back. They never miss a trick. They get it so much quicker than adults do.
Yeah.
And there's such an incredible contribution. So, and then the next class is Kids Changing the Insanity, and it's a 2-day class. And what the insanity is the insanity, the insane points of view that we were given as kids that are perpetrated on our kids by everybody out there, that we may actually perpetrate on our own kids because we don't know what else to do. And it's a more intensive class, and it really gives you tools and processes that you can use, questions that you can ask that go really deep, and that can change a lot of things for you, for your kids, for your classes, for your classrooms, for your practice, like that. So the 1-day class is really an introduction to this different point of view, and the 2-day class is greater change beyond.
Yeah.
You mentioned that these classes are going to be, you're going to get the recordings of them and manuals or something?
Yes, you'll get recordings. One of the things that I'm going to do, I'm doing a European tour, so you guys are first off. I come to Copenhagen first, and then I go to Vienna, and then I'm going to be going in other parts of Europe and possibly Asia, not sure yet. But in any event, I'm going to be creating manuals, and the manuals will be taken from these classes. So I won't have a manual for you for these classes, and if you come to these classes, you will be a huge contributor to the manuals that I'm going to be creating, and you will receive a manual when they're done.
And so that is so amazing, because it's like, then you can keep it going.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
not like, yeah,
Yeah.
we can read from that even years after.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm like that. I read all the manuals that I ever get over and over and over again. So yeah.
So thank you so much. I think we at the end now.
Yeah, I would
Thank
like
you
to
so
add one
much.
small thing, and it is that anybody who has been listening here, if you have any questions, you can go to the event page. You can write them there, or you can even get hold on either Helle, me, or Marianne. Our names are there, and please ask anything you would like to ask about what's happening today, what has been going on in this class today, and what the other class is about. Anything. You can just
And that's the event page on Facebook?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Cool.
So
And then
thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody out there, and thank you so much, Anne, for being online with us.
Yeah.
thank you so
Looking
much.
forward to being in the class.
I can't wait to see you guys again.
Bye bye.
Yes.
Bye.